If you're using Blender to design things for 3D printing and sometimes those prints don't fit together, fail halfway through, or have some other unusual problem you can't put your finger on, chances are it's not your printer, it's what you're doing in Blender. Here are 5 very common mistakes that are going to help you up your game. I've made all these mistakes, so let's go through them one by one and see how we can fix them. Okay, one of the first mistakes I always see is not applying your scale. When you have your model in Blender, if you don't apply the scale before you ship it off for 3D printing, it can mean your wall thickness can be wrong, it can print the wrong size on the print bed. Essentially, we need to reset the scale of whatever object is we've created from its origin point, otherwise it's not going to look right. Let me give you an example of that using the default cube. Okay, folks, so the easiest way to think about this is right now we have this object. This is just our default cube, and the scale is set to 1, 1, 1. If ever it says 1, 1, 1, that means that the scale is applied, and this is basically Blender is reading the correct size of our object. Now, if I was to scale this just on the z-axis, you will see here that it now says 1, 1, 2.759. So now, even though we are seeing a long cuboid, Blender is seeing a cube that has been stretched on the z-axis. So to make this our actual shape, we need to apply that scale. Otherwise, if we add bevels to the edges or try and read the dimensions, they're going to be off because it thinks that the z is now stretched to nearly 3 times the amount. So for our dimensions to be correct and for this to work properly in our slicing software, when you have your model where you want it, you can hit Control A and then apply the scale. This basically tells Blender this stretched object that we'd made is no longer a stretched object, it is the object. This is now the correct scale. Now when we add our different, if we add bevels or export this, the dimensions will be correct for 3D printing, meaning we're not going to have things like wall failures or weird wall thicknesses, or when pieces are trying to fit together, it might be a little bit off. This should solve that. So always remember, apply your rotation and scale. Mistake number 2 is Blender Overwhelm. Stop trying to learn every single tool there is in Blender. Blender is an incredible bit of software used for animation, lighting, rigging, so many cool things. But if you try and learn all those things at once, you're probably going to get burned out, a little bit overwhelmed, and a little bit freaked out. So it's best to just stick to the projects that you're working on and grow your knowledge gradually. Like for 3D printing, when I'm making models, it's very different than when I'm making models for animation. But as you grow and learn more about the tool, you will see that your skill set slowly expands and expands and expands. So keep exploring and keep learning these new things, but do it bit by bit. Don't think you're going to learn everything there is to do in the software. I probably only use 15% of what the software is actually capable of for the things that I do. Just make it project-based, stick to that, work that out, and once you're comfortable, then start looking at other things and exploring some of your other interests. Okay, mistake number 3 can be one of the most frustrating mistakes that happens in Blender, and it's one of the hardest to catch, and that is non-manifold geometry. Having holes in your models or gaps in your models. When you do that, the slicing software will try and fill those holes by guessing, and it doesn't always get it right, sometimes resulting in the model not printing at all, or mistakes and weird things happening with the model. It's very frustrating. So I'm going to show you how to fix that. Essentially, we need to have no gaps. Your model needs to be watertight. Imagine if it was full of water, would water leak out of anywhere? If the answer is yes, we need to repair that. So let's look at what that is using the default cube and then how we can fix it. So if we use this default cube as an example, this looks like it's all pretty good, right? But if I go into edit mode and then I hit G, you will see that these 2 vertexes are not attached. So there is a gap in our model. This would not print. So this happens all the time. To the naked eye, it looks perfect, but then there might be secret gaps in your model. Now, there's a few ways we can fix this. Let's say we have this out here and we actually like the shape of this, but we want to fill this gap. Well, we can go into Edge Select and we can hit this edge and hit F to create a face. And then we can hit that edge to hit F again to continue the faces and block that along. That's one way of filling that hole. If we undo that right now, we can also hit Alt and hit that edge, which will select all the edges around. And then if we hit Alt F it will then do the same thing. It will follow the geometry and fill in the two faces for us there. If I undo that. However, if we want this cube to be back as it was, as a perfect cube, we can hit this this vertex here, hold shift and hit this vertex here, and then hit M to bring up the merge menu, and then you can put either at center, at cursor, at collapse. But for this one, I'm going to do at last. So it will merge the vertexes to the last vertex that I had selected. So if I do that, you'll see now that we now have our default cube fully formed again, no gaps. So this will print with no issues. Mistake number 4 is overhangs. This right here, and not understanding them correctly. As you get more into 3D printing, you need to learn about having a good print practice workflow where you try and avoid overhangs at all costs. The reason being is as the prints print layer by layer, as it gets more and more angled, it means that the prints are trying to basically print on thin air, which means it can warp, twist, and bend. Now, what we always want to try and do is not go any further than a 45-degree angle. Now, some printers, like my Bamboo Lab printer, can print pretty steep overhangs, which is great, but you can't quite see on this model, it still doesn't look great. And if you're doing like really nice kind of commercial projects and stuff, you really don't want all those kind of nasty layer lines showing. So always try and print with overhangs no more than 45 degrees. That way you don't have to use any supports and your prints are going to come out looking really nice. This is a testing plate to test all the different things that you can do on your printer. I would recommend using one of these because then you can see the limits you can push your printer to as well. You can find these online. So yeah, they're fantastic. But yeah, you can see this little overhang bar here. That'll show you how far it can go, and you can see where it starts to warp and not look so great. But as a rule of thumb, no more than 45 degrees and you're going to be golden. And my 5th and final tip for you is not something that's technical, but is more about mental state. And that is your first design doesn't have to be perfect right out of the gate. Don't stress trying to make it perfect. This deck box that is incredibly complex with a lot of different moving parts and shapes took me like 15, I think, to 20 different iterations before I got it where it wanted to be. And that's very normal. 3D printing and 3D design is a very iterative process. You're learning as you go. And as long as you're having fun and learning step by step, that's all that matters. Keep printing, keep learning how your printer works, the quirks of your printer, how to learn the different tolerances. Just keep building and growing and growing. The first one can give you the basic shape. Your second print can give you like, okay, now let's work out how these are going to fit together, and just keep iterating and learning and growing. And eventually each print you make and each design you make will get quicker and quicker as your skill set grows and as you learn your machinery. So go easy on yourself. This is supposed to be fun. It's an amazing hobby, and just keep learning. And as long as you're learning, you're growing, and that's awesome. And that's it, folks. 5 mistakes I see beginners making all the time when they're using Blender or other 3D software for 3D printing. I hope you found this really useful. If you know of any other mistakes that you see all the time or that you're making all the time, let me know in the comments. I might do a part 2 to this video. If you want to learn how to 3D print and 3D model yourself, you should check out my beginner tutorial series. I make a dice tower, a dice tray, a deck box, and I'm releasing new tutorials every week. So you should check that out. If you found this valuable, please like, subscribe, ring the bell, do all that other stuff. I've been Copper Thumb. You've been awesome. I'll see you in the next one.